Hey guys, it's Joshua here, aka the Catholic Marine. One of the greatest treasures within the Catholic Church are the priests. Jesus Christ himself established them as his representatives on earth, and they cooperate with him in teaching, governing, and sanctifying God's people. We are very blessed to have them. Unfortunately, the Catholic priesthood, particularly the discipline of priestly celibacy, is greatly misunderstood. It is often declared as unbiblical and utterly unnatural. We often hear, doesn't the Bible say we are to be fruitful and multiply? Doesn't Scripture lay out the requirements for a bishop, and he is to be a husband of one wife and must manage his own household well, keeping his children submissive and respectful in every way? For if a man does not know how to manage his own household, how can he care for God's church? And didn't Jesus heal Peter's mother-in-law, which indicates that Peter, the first pope, was married? These are the most common objections used, along with the recent sex abuse scandals from the past 60 or 70 years as proof that the Catholic Church is invalid somehow for having celibate priests. Therefore, in this video, I'm going to show that that is easily not true. And like always, I'll use the Bible as a reference. Alrighty, let's dive right in. Okay, first I want to discuss what the actual Catholic Church's teaching on priestly celibacy is and clear up any misconception. The Catholic Church has what are called dogmas, doctrines, and disciplines. Dogmas are fundamental decrees of the Catholic Church. They were given to us by Jesus Christ himself, either through sacred scripture or sacred tradition. They are universal and can never be changed. Examples would be Christ is fully God and fully man, and there is only one God. This is important to understand because most people who object to priestly celibacy believe the Catholic Church has always, everywhere, and in all cases, forced their priests to live a celibate life. Hence why they point out Peter having a wife. They falsely believe the Catholic Church considers priestly celibacy a dogma, when in reality it is a discipline. Now, disciplines within the Catholic Church are practices that come from the magisterium, or teaching office of the Church, and can change as the Church sees fit in order to help the faithful live their lives more efficaciously. Remember what Christ said to the first Pope, Peter, and later to the rest of the apostles. Whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Examples of disciplines that have changed throughout the history of the Church would be the time of fasting before receiving the Eucharist and priestly celibacy. This is why we see the early church leaders with wives and children. It wasn't until later on in the 4th century that the Church implemented priest celibacy. Now, as a surprise to some, not every priest today within the Catholic Church practices priestly celibacy. You see, the Catholic Church as a whole has two main branches, the Western Rite and the Eastern Rite, each with its own associated rites in liturgical language, customs, spiritualities, and region. When Christ told the apostles, "Go and make disciples of all nations," that's exactly what the Catholic Church did and has done for 2,000 years. There are 1.3 billion Catholics on this earth, more than any Christian denomination by a large margin. Now, I say all this because in the Eastern Rite, married priests are the norm. And even in the Western or Latin Rite, which is what most Catholics belong to, are married priests. However, there's a caveat to this. If a man is married and is an Anglican or Episcopalian priest, and he then converts to Catholicism, he has a choice to either become a regular layman or serve the Church as a married Catholic priest. Many of you who watch this channel know Dr. Taylor Marshall. He was a married Episcopalian priest. However, he chose to become a layman after he converted instead of becoming a priest. So although married men may become priests, unmarried priests may not marry, and married priests, if widowed, may not remarry. I also want to point out that the Catholic Church doesn't force anyone to not marry. Men voluntarily renounce marriage on their own accord, and the Church then simply elects candidates for priesthood from among those who already voluntarily renounced marriage. Now, I explain all this to show that if someone says, well, the Catholic Church is erroneous for having all their priests celibate, well, now you know that that is simply not true. There are married priests. Now, someone may say, well, that may solve the Peter being married issue, but what about today? Why is priestly celibacy practiced? It doesn't seem rational. Well, let's go to Scripture to show why the Catholic Church, particularly the Western Rite, has implemented priestly celibacy. We see the beloved Paul the Apostle himself was celibate and actually commended the practice, saying in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, I want you to be free from the concerns of this life. An unmarried man can spend his time doing the Lord's work and thinking about how to please him. But a married man has to think about his earthly responsibilities and how to please his wife. His interests are divided. Then just a couple of verses down, he says, but if he has decided firmly not to marry and there is no urgency and he can control his passion, he does well not to marry. So the person who marries his fiancée does well. And the person who doesn't marry does even better. And then we have Jesus Christ, who is the way, the truth, and the life, who is also celibate, states, I say to you, whoever divorces his wife, unless the marriage is unlawful, and marries another commits adultery. His disciples said to him, if that is the case of a man with his wife, it is better not to marry. He answered, not all can accept this word, but only those to whom it is granted. Some were incapable of marriage because they were born so. Some because they were made so by others. Some because they have renounced marriage for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. Whoever can accept this ought to accept it. So as we can see, priestly celibacy is advocated by both Paul and Jesus Christ in the Bible. And that is where the church bases the practice from, along with the notion that in heaven, we won't be married. So in a way, priests are preparing for heaven here on earth. Now, as far as the objection of it being unnatural, look, I get it, I understand. I myself am a married man and have 5 children. I love playing with my kids and having a conjugal relationship with my beautiful wife. And I know many other men feel the same way. I mean, I would even argue that most men are called to be married and have children. I will say this though, God gives each person specific graces to fulfill their particular state in life. I once heard a priest tell a story that before he became a priest, he went off to college, had girlfriends, and dreamt of having a family. God, however, called him to the priesthood. So he renounced marriage and gave his life solely to God. He said, although, early in his life he had relationships with women, he has no problem going to bed alone every single night. That's because God gave him that grace to be able to live that lifestyle. Remember what I read in the Bible earlier from the lips of Jesus pertaining to, renouncing marriage for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. Not all can accept this word, but only those to whom it is granted. Guys, with God's grace, we can do unimaginable things. It's analogous to this. I met people that couldn't fathom being at a bar on a Saturday night with music bumping and dancing and not getting drunk. It's like those two go hand in hand, right? It seems unnatural to them. But I also know people that have been to a bar on a Saturday night on numerous occasions and didn't drink a single drop of alcohol and still had the time of their lives. What may seem unnatural or incapable for you may not be the same for everybody else. Okay, now let's talk about the recent sex abuse scandals. I'm going to preface this by saying that if any church leader, no matter who they are or what religion they belong to, is guilty of sexually abusing anyone, should be punished and removed from their office, including Catholic priests. Now, with that being said, a lot of people claim if priests weren't living a life of celibacy, then they wouldn't be sexually abusing men, women, or children. I mean, doesn't the Bible say it is better to marry than to burn with lust? Well, a study was done by John Jay College of Criminal Justice in 2011 and found around 4% of Catholic priests were accused of sexually abusing minors obviously, which is horrible and disgusting. However, there was no difference between Catholic and non-Catholic religious groups. A U.S. Department of Education study found about 6% of public school teachers had credible claims of sexual abuse of minor children under their charge during the same time frame as the Catholic clerical data was obtained. Rabbis, pastors, neighbors, teachers, coaches, scout leaders, youth group volunteers, and doctors all commit these egregious acts, all at about the similar rate. Now, I know this may sound like I'm attempting to deflect blame from the priests, but I'm not. Trust me, I'm not. I'm only pointing out that Catholic priests are not head and shoulders above all of the male groups out there. Another analogy would be this. In the past century, there have been white racist police officers that have abused, beat, and killed black men and women. Hundreds, if not thousands of them have been attacked or killed by white cops just because they were black. Now, of course, this goes both ways, but stay with me on this. Now, what if I told you all white cops were racist? Well, of course not. Of course that isn't true. Just because there are racist cops out there, it's only a small number compared to the police force as a whole. Majority of police officers are fair, honest, and do their job with great honor and dignity. Yes, Catholic priests have been committed heinous, disgusting sexual abuse crimes, and they should be severely punished. I would agree with that 100%. However, this does not mean priestly celibacy is the reason for their actions, and it doesn't devalue the priesthood. No more than a fraction of police officers who are racist doesn't speak for the whole police force. These priests that are guilty don't speak for the whole priesthood, as there are many, many holy priests out there. I personally have met plenty of them. Plus, being a married man doesn't mean you will all of a sudden not commit these crimes. I mean, just turn on the 6 o'clock news. There are child molesters and sex offenders that are single and married. Now, I just want to take a quick moment to thank all the priests who are watching this video by saying my family and I, and many Catholics around the world, are appreciative of all that you do for us. I know it isn't easy being a priest, and we are praying for you every single day. All right, now I hope this helped you understand why the Catholic Church implemented priestly celibacy and where it is based from. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And remember, the most important weapon you can take into battle is the Most Holy Rosary. God bless, Godspeed, and Semper Fi.